this is Reverend Don Lewis, and welcome to another episode of Living the Wiccan Life. In this episode, I'm very pleased to bring you my recent interview with Circle Minister, Hospice Chaplain, and Certified Death Midwife, Nora Cedarwind Young, who will speak to us about her ministry and the importance of good end-of-life care for pagans. I'm sure you'll enjoy this interview.
I'm Nora Cedarwind Young. I am a Circle Minister. I am also a Hospice Chaplain, Pagan Hospice Chaplain in Washington State, and a Certified Death Midwife and Green Burial Educator.
And we're here tonight at a party honoring Circle's 35th anniversary.
Yes, we are. 35 years.
And how did you come to be associated with Circle?
Well, it started through my husband, who had known Selena prior to the acquisition of land, back when the days of sending out postcards that said, if you've received this postcard, please send $5. We want to buy land. And so both my husband and I had been recipients of that, but my husband, because of his upbringing in the Chicago area and Wisconsin area, had a close proximity to Selena. Myself, from a distance. And when we hooked up many, many years later, I knew of his affinity. On our very first date, we discussed our hopes and dreams for our lifetime, and we both explored the fact that we had both wanted to attend a PSG with a partner. He had been to many PSGs. I had never been to PSG. So I was like, wow, you've been to PSG? Please take me. And the next year we attended our first PSG together, and it was a momentous event. And we've been together ever since.
That's a wonderful Valentine's Day story.
Relationship, absolutely.
Now, would you like to talk a little bit about your work?
I would. I am a certified death midwife, so my work encompasses end-of-life realities and death at home. I'm a green burial educator also, and an end-of-life planner. I'm also the first Pagan Hospice Chaplain in the nation. So I kind of expanse a lot of things. I do a lot of education, but more than anything, I am about empowering people about the choices they have available to them at home at end of life. And I do a lot of education around this because the modern day funeral industry costs folks a lot of money. Not that I don't want to have good relationships with our modern day funeral providers, but many of us, earth-centered people, are about having choice available to us and greener options. And when you consider what we bury every day, every year in the United States, unnecessarily for the sake of a formal burial, we could be making these much more green traditions, as we have for many, many generations prior to the generation in which we live. You know, people are re-embracing this. And for many of us, of the baby boomer generation, we have elderly parents, we have aging partners, and hey, we're getting a little bit older ourselves. So we're embracing the concept of end of life. We're looking at it. We're saying, I need to make some conscious choices around this. I need to realize how my end of life is going to affect the resources that Gaia has to offer us. And do I want to embrace womb-to-womb consciousness? Do I want to be someone that is returned to the earth in a green consciousness? I could be a sandwich for a tree. And do I want that, or is cremation the best choice for me? I really don't care what people choose, as long as they've been given good information, are able to make informed consent, and they're able to make a decision based on having all the information presentable to them, and, you know, able to make a choice that speaks to their hearts. So that's kind of the education that I do around the earth, as well as supporting families for death at home and home funerals. Yeah.
You were telling me earlier about the effect that home funerals have for people.
It is an amazing effect, and thank you for bringing that up. In our modern day funeral culture, we have, you know, when someone dies, their body is removed from the home or wherever it is that they died. They are taken away to a funeral home director. They are pumped full of chemicals and artificial coloring. We all show up in clothing that we're uncomfortable in for like an hour or 2 hours, where we're expected to be presentable to society. Usually someone who never even knew the deceased is presiding over them. And we can't keen and wail and grieve in the ways that we need to. We have this neat little hour and a half period where we're expected to grieve and then say thank you very much for showing up, all is well, I'm going to be back to work in a few days. When we do home funerals, the death of our beloved dead usually occurs at home, and if not, we can still bring our beloved dead back home. And we can have their body at home for 3 to 5 days. We preserve the body using dry ice, which is totally legal in all states. We can do art therapy of adorning their cremation container if they choose cremation. We can also have the empowerment of planning a green burial. Children can come in and out. We can circle around. We can laugh. We can cry. We can sing. We can mourn. But to have several days with our beloved dead, the healing is facilitated. And through this process, what the ultimate result is, people come up to you and say, oh, you know, it's so-and-so crossed over. That was the most beautiful experience of our life. Instead of, I'm still really feeling grief and pain over not having processed the death of Uncle Joe, you know, and when we can have him at home and touch him and stroke him and bathe him and anoint him and prepare his cremation container and transport him, you know, right up to witnessing a cremation, if cremation is, or witnessing the burial into the earth, if that is what the person has chosen. It is empowering to us as a people, it's affirming to the wishes of our beloved dead, and it's healing to those of us that survive. The cycle of life goes on.
How did you come to this path?
Well, it was a long journey, but it truly came through the pagan path, honoring the cycles of the season, that everything that lives dies, and everything that dies is reborn again. And it's very simple. I can't argue with it. Did have an experience with a close friend in the 80s who had an infant son that was hit and killed by a hit-and-run driver. And it was very challenging to tell my young children who were his best friends that Ben would no longer be able to come over and play again. And I was given this great book that explained that everything that lives dies. If it's a flower, an oak tree, an elder, a dog, a cat, you know, a stone, everything that lives dies, and they all have a life cycle. And we must not fear this because it is the truth. What my calling from the gods has been is to speak to people and say, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the inevitable. Death and taxes, they're sure things. We know they're going to happen, but let's talk about it, because the sooner we talk about it, the sooner we can prepare, the sooner we can take the workload off of those we leave behind to have to do this type of work. I also educate people to the place of make a plan. There's 6 essential documents that every person should have prepared for end of life. And if you go to my website, www.thresholdsoflife.org, which is my personal website, on there you'll see the 6 essential documents that every person should have prepared. I also teach that you should have a date, and I suggest Samhain, since we're talking about death and dying at that time, where you pull these documents out and look at what has changed over the year. Has a spouse left you? Has a minor child become an adult? Has your employment changed? Has an elder left your community? All of these, you know, has your employment changed? Has your financial, all of these things into your final paperwork. So we need to have our documents in order, and then we also need to have a review process where every year we're reviewing these documents to see that they are current. And this is out of respect for our community.
Well, thank you very much.
You are so welcome.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of this lovely party.
And I shall indeed. Thank you for taking time to speak with me.
Thank you for taking time to speak with me.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed this interview and that you'll join us again next time for more of Living the Wiccan Life. Until then, may you blessed be.
Aww. Hey! Aha!